How you doing? Justin here. Today we're going to have a little look at somebody that I used to know, the Gotye tune. Now we're not going to go full on Mike Dawes on this. If you want to do the really fancy percussive melody, chords, all of the intricacy things, then do check out Mike's arrangement. It's quite incredible, but way beyond my skill level. And I imagine for many other guitar players around the world that like playing this tune and might like to explore it a bit more, but don't have the technical facility to go into Spiderfingers land. So I started working on it, on an arrangement and trying to do stuff, and I figured that actually maybe the journey is part of the interesting thing about this, rather than just me coming up with an arrangement and teaching it to you. I figured I'd kind of share some of the journey of the things that I thought about to get to do an arrangement, because it might help you do it with this tune and with some other tunes. So I'm not going to give you a specific arrangement, but I want to explain to you some of the thought processes behind it and hope that it might inspire you to have a go at doing some of this sort of stuff yourself. So when I started with doing the tune, and it was like it came up on my to-do list. I'm looking at new songs to do for this year. I haven't been doing so much so far. I transcribed the song, and it was, had this little riff here going, just a D minor to C, and then the chorus D minor, B flat to C. And I said, I was playing around it. I was like, okay, well, I might teach it this way with the bar chords as well as doing an easy beginner one. And it was like, well, how can I do an easy beginner one? D minor to C I could do here, but then still had a B flat in the chorus. I was like, oh, that doesn't work either. So the only way that I could kind of figure that, or that, not the only way, but the way that seemed to be the easiest for me to approach it from a beginner kind of point of view, was to put the capo around here at the 5th fret, and then I had the A minor to G to F, A minor G for the verses and A minor G F G for the choruses. I'm hoping that you've seen the beginner version, the beginner video for this song, because that should be required starting point to know what the chords are and the structure and stuff. So that was the first thing, and then I started thinking about, well, looking at the different arrangement-y bits that you might pull out. That's maybe not as, I love Mike's version. I'd love to be able to do it, but it's a bit much for me to learn, if I want to play it at a party. I don't, it's complicated, different tunings, all of that. So what I started thinking about was how might I be able to go about replicating some of the important bits of the tune, or arranging some of those bits to make it a bit more playable, but a little bit more interesting than doing just the straight strumming thing. The really obvious first place to start is looking at the bass part. So the bass is quite consistent. It's just moving. It's the notes D to C, but with the capo, and it's kind of like an A minor shape to a G shape. But just getting this 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay, that would be the first thing, just to try and get, that pattern down. If you're going to sing it, you have to be able to play it and talk and think about other stuff at the same time. It's good exercise for me doing this kind of lesson where I'm playing it and talking. I'm sure it's going to go wrong. In fact, I kind of anticipated it going wrong before now. I'll stop while I'm ahead. But that would be the first step, because that's obviously a good part, as an arrangement. You could use just that bass part for one of the verses perhaps, or in the sections between the verses. But as soon as you start doing that, for me anyway, I wanted to naturally kind of hit the strings in between. So I had this. So all I'm doing is keeping that thumb going, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3. So the hit is coming on beats 2 and 4, and the bass is going 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1. Okay, so straight away now. So once I've been mucking around with that little bass line for a while and the hit, I wanted to start incorporating maybe some of this melody line that you hear on the original recording going as well. This like or at least something similar, particularly the first part. Now, if you're going to do something like that, the first stage is to work out how to play it. And if I'd been doing like the bar chordy version, it would have become a lot more difficult. But in this position, still not, super easy. The A minor, the notes in the chord, G's in the chord. This one, the A minor, thinner string, first finger lays over, then little finger off, then back to the G. So that section there's relatively easy, and the idea of the thing that I would encourage you to do is learn the chords first of all, or try and get a little groove on, figure out what the melody is, and then see if there's a way of incorporating that in. Now, some of you might have seen I've got a lesson, I think it's called Melodic Percussive Fingerstyle. It's basically how I try to emulate Neil Young style strumming and rhythm playing, where his thing is very much having the bass note with the thumb, a melody note with the one of the fingers, then a downward hit with the fingers, which is this kind of percussive hit, but with that downstroke you can also hit a note. And then another note you can get if you want one on the next and the and after two, you can pluck it with the one of the fingers. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and so like the most basic version of that pattern. There's lessons for that over on my site if you're interested. I think it's called Melodic Percussive Fingerstyle. I think is the title of the lesson. So using that kind of idea, I was trying to go. Brain freeze there. So now I can get the chord together. So thumb is playing the bass note still, and now I'm doing a little hit to play the melody note. So I've lost the actual. I'm not capable of doing that melody and that bass line at the same time. I probably could if I spend ages practicing it, and I might talk about that a little later on, how you'd go about practicing doing that. But so now we end up with just I'm using my two fingers to pluck some of the chord and the bass. Hit, G, hit. So plucking, playing a note, and then I'm using a down hit with my percussive hit to get the note, and then plucking the thinner string in. So I'm not saying that you should do it exactly that way. I'm just suggesting the process of trying to find the little melody first of all. It might not be super easy for you straight away to find the melody, but just a little bit of practice listening to the original recording, trying to figure out how to play it, trying to play it how you hear it, because it's okay to do it slightly differently. It doesn't have to be exactly like the record. I think trying to get it recognizable is not a bad idea if you're going to play it at a gig or at a party or whatever. But that gives you some, a part of an approach where you'd try and find that melody as well. Now, in the verses, again, if you're going to use verse 1 as being the... That's it. So I'm having to think about it now because I wanted as my little pattern. So I had to go. So 1 with the thumbs, and to get the chord part now on beat 2, I have to hit it down because that's my backbeat. 1, 2, and I was missing that bass note because I wanted to go 1, 2, and 3. So after the backbeat, I had to remember to hit the bass note. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Now, that kind of thing, that little pattern, it's the kind of thing for me, I have to practice those over and over again. I've already done a little bit of work on that pattern, not loads, like 10 or 15 minutes or something. When I was mucking around, I did a live stream where I was just debating whether to do this kind of fancy version or to do a simple beginner thing. I did a live stream of that on YouTube. But, so I've done it a little bit already, but it would literally, if I wanted to do this for a gig or something like that, I would be... It's difficult, and I'm probably going a little bit too fast still. One thing that I find helpful when I'm doing that kind of trying to get a pattern where there's different parts is thinking about the individual parts. So even though I might be now, right, I'm just thinking about the bass. You know, and it takes, you know, most guys learning that kind of technical fingerstyle-y stuff have to practice those sort of things over and over again until they become natural under your fingers. It's not, I meet students who seem to think that you can just, that the really good guys can just naturally do that. And maybe some of them can, but most of the ones that I've met have to, you know, practice. They have to, you know, find a little bit that's technically challenging and do it repetitively over and over again until you can play it, you know, and then you have to drill it over and over and try and get it kind of automated so you can start thinking about the musicality of it, not just the technical capacity of it. I have found writing these kind of things down before to be pretty helpful, although I haven't started to even write down anything for this particular arrangement at all yet. I haven't taken it that far. I'm still at the point where I figured I'd share with you part of that process, you know. So if I was going to arrange this now, I'd probably be starting to think about having that. For a beginning, and then introduce the chord on the bass for the verse. That would keep going for the whole of the first verse probably. And again, this is the kind of thing it'd be really good to practice for me as well. And then so having that kind of build up where the first verse was very sparse and the second verse introduced some of that, a bit more of the chord thing. For me, the difficulty there was on the G chord. I kept on forgetting the bass note just before going back to the A. So little things like that will grab your ear, and then you just have to slow it down. I'm not practicing it now for you. I'm trying to demonstrate the process, but it would definitely be a period now of me doing that one little part slowly, very slowly, over and over again to make sure that I'm getting it right and that it feels nice. And at the moment, I'm still kind of tripping up over myself or having little brain freezes where I'm like, oh, what's the next bit? And it's getting disrupted, and I don't like that. That usually is a sign that I'm going too fast. So I need to slow it down and try and lock back into the groove of it again. For the chorus, it would definitely be probably a more strummy affair, just because it's a bigger chorus, you know, especially if I'm playing it at a party. I want it to come out. I want everyone to have a sing along with it, and so generally you want the choruses to be a little bit bigger than that. Now there's one other part, one other dominant kind of melody line. So that's that little melody. Again, you'd need to figure that melody out first, you know. Open string, open thinner string, third fret, open, third fret on the second string, second fret on the third string. So finding the melody, listen to the original recording, playing along, making sure that you can do it, and then sitting down trying to figure out how you can incorporate that in with those chords. So I'm mainly thinking about the bass as well, not necessarily because that's much more complicated. I'm just thinking of the bass on. So I'm just thinking bass note on 1 and 3, the hit on 2 and 4, and if there's other notes in there, can I get to them with my fingers? So that would be the process for me. and that one just a finger pick just in between, and here I'm using a second finger there to play that note while I'm holding the, you know, moving over to the G bass note. So da, da. You know, trying to figure out where there's these little bits that are like, oh, that's a little bit challenging. And my approach is sometimes lazy, where I'll just be like, well, I can't quite do that melody the way I'd really like, so I'll just adapt it to fit how it might work for me. Other times I'll sit down and actually, if I think it's important, I'll sit down and practice that one bit over and over again until it sorts itself out, you know, and it becomes like then a full-on practice exercise where it's, come on, you know, do this really slowly, get the fingering figured out. Sometimes I'll come across something that's technically difficult for my fingers to do, so I'll have to sit down and work on the fingering, you know, and what's the easiest finger to make this particular change. But most often I don't I don't worry about that too much. There are things already in that little part I just did that I thought, well, that fingering's not right, but it's the one that feels natural under my fingers, and I don't have time to practice that kind of little thing for hours anymore. I kind of wish I did, but I don't. So I'm trying to do the best with what I got. That's probably not the best, you know, example to set for you, because it would be better to spend more time on it. But, you know, as in my role as a jobbing guitar player, I've got plenty of things to be learning, not least a whole list of songs on my list that I want to do lessons for. But, you know, for you, if this is a tune for you, see how you can work out an arrangement like that for yourself, because it'd be a really good exercise, this tune. Chords are fairly simple. Learning to try and pick out that melody while you're holding onto a bass line or holding onto the backbeat would be a really great exercise, for just a thing to explore. You definitely don't have to do it that way. You don't have to keep the bass note. You don't have to, you know, play on the backbeat. You could work out a whole fingerstyle arrangement that's completely different. You know, there aren't any rules in this, and I would encourage you to get creative and see what you can do with it. Yeah. I hope that's been an interesting... I figured that the journey might be as interesting as me just trying to write down an arrangement. If you really want me to calculate an arrangement for it and write it down, then I might be up for that. But I kind of feel like it'd be better for you guys to do your own arrangements of it. And hopefully I've given you enough tools and you've seen enough going on there. And if you check out my melodic percussive fingerstyle pattern and you get that hand down, it's a really great technique for being able to play melodies within your chord stuff when you're strumming or playing a tune. So I would encourage you to check that out. Folk fingerstyle module on my website might also help as well, because there's a whole thing about how the scales and the chords fit together and how you can start to introduce scale or melody lines into your chords. I think that's a pretty valuable skill as well. So look, I hope, yeah, I'd be interested to see any links to you guys making your own arrangements after seeing this. And, you know, if you really want a set arrangement, then let me know in the comments as well. And if there's enough interest, I will actually calculate a proper one and do a lesson where I go, use this finger to do this. But like I said, I'd kind of rather encourage you guys to get creative. Plenty more on the website. Of course, do go and check it out. Way over 1,000 lessons there now for free. And I really appreciate your support. So please do hit that subscribe button if you didn't already. I'll see you for plenty more very soon. You take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.